All right, make sure you read your agenda and you are in fact on this video. So if you went from the first video straight to this video, you are not following your agenda. Please fix what you are doing. Go back and read on Google Classroom, complete what you're supposed to do before you do this video, and then come back and watch this video. If you have done what Google Classroom has asked of you, then awesome, good job. We are on your page 14. We're going to look at number 6. So you should have all of the other ones from pages 13 and number 5 on page 14 completed and checked with the answer key. Now that we are here, we're going to talk about the second type, which is not dealing with rectangles. With the second type, you're going to have these different situations, and then it's going to ask you a question about the situation, and you're going to set up an equation. Once again, you need to make sure you also define your variables, so you must be doing these two things. I recommend you show me some work, but then you have to have a solution. Showing me your work of setting up your equation to then solving, having some work in there, is just going to help you get some partial credit. I highly, highly, highly recommend that you do that. So let's look at number 6 and talk about how to set this one up and solve. Bill weighs 120 pounds and is gaining 10 pounds each month. Phil weighs 150 pounds and is gaining 4 pounds each month. How many months will it take Bill to weigh the same as Phil? So I'm going to set up two separate little expressions first. The first one is going to be Bill, and the second one is going to be Phil. I'm going to set up what I know about Bill, and then I'm going to set up what I know about Phil, and then I'm going to go back and read the question. So Bill weighs 120 and is gaining 10 pounds each month. So if he weighs 120 and he is gaining, then that means he is adding weight, and he is adding 10 pounds every month. I'm going to use the letter M. So I have to define my variable. Since I'm using the letter M, I can go ahead and do that now. M is going to stand for my months. Now, the other way to know what it is that you're looking for, which would be how you would define your variable. Once again, you can pick any letter. I picked M because I knew it's months. You could have picked X. And if you didn't know what it stood for, you're like, I don't know. I don't know what my variable should stand for. I know it's just X. You're going to read the question. How many months? Right here. How many what? How many months? So whatever it is you're looking for, trying to answer, that is going to be your variable. That's what you're looking for. Your variable is your unknown. We don't know the months. So your variable, whatever letter you picked, stands for months in this problem. All right. Back to setting up now Phil. Phil, we'll use a different color for Phil. Phil weighs 150 pounds and is gaining 4 pounds each month. So he weighs 150 and he is gaining also, so he should be adding. He is gaining only 4 pounds each month. So his little expression is going to be 150 plus 4m. Now, it's not always going to be a plus sign. Phil might have been losing weight. It might have said he's 150 and is losing 4 pounds each month. And in that case, it would have been a subtraction because losing is a minus sign. In certain situations, your starting thing could also be negative. All right, you owe $17. So I would start out with a negative 17. And then depends on your next part of your situation if you're adding or subtracting. Your variable also does not always go on the second term. It could go on the first term, depending on how your word problem is set up. So just pay attention to that. Now that I've set both of these up about Bill and Phil, I'm going to read my question. How many months will it take Bill to weigh the same as Phil? What does it mean if they weigh the same? They would be equal. So I'm going to take for my equation, I'm going to take what I know about Bill, 120 plus 10m, and I'm going to set it equal to what I know about Phil, 150 plus 4m. There is my equation. I have Bill's information equal, the same as Phil's information. Now that you have an equation, you can work that out and solve it. So I'm going to rewrite this here so that I can solve this out. Here's my line. From 2, 3, you should remember your don't call me after midnight. So to solve this equation, you're going to start with D, distribute, which I don't have any distributing to do in this problem. There's no sets of parentheses, so I can just X, that one's done. Combine, for C, combine like terms. On my left side, I have no like terms to combine. On my right side, I have no like terms to combine. So good with that. This first M was move the variable. So when you look at both sides, I do have a variable on both sides, so I do need to pick one and move it. And it doesn't matter. And if you choose to move the other one, that's fine. You're just going to continue solving slightly different than me. I'm going to choose to move this +4. I'm going to choose that because I'm going to move the smaller variable. Since the 10 is bigger, I want to move the smaller one. By doing that, I'm going to make sure that this variable is going to stay positive. If you would move the 10 over, it would be negative, which is fine. You're allowed to do that. I want to keep positive numbers. Makes life easier. So to move your variable, it is always adding or subtracting to get rid of it. Since this is a positive 4m, we want to get rid of 4m, so we need to subtract 4m from both sides. My 120, I did nothing with, bring that down. 10 minus 4 is 6m, so plus 6m equals, I did nothing with 150, bring it down, and 4 minus 4 is 0, that is gone. So I moved my variable. Now for your last two, A and M, you want to focus on whatever side your variable is on. If you did what I did and your variable is over here on the left, we're going to focus on that side, getting rid of those numbers. But if you chose to move the 10 over to the other side, perfectly fine. But you're going to then focus on getting rid of the things over on that side. So A is add or subtract your constant. And remember, we're focusing on the side where your variable is. So I do have two constants, 120 and 150, but I want to get rid of the one that's on the same side as my variable M. So I need to get rid of 120. When I want to add or subtract, I need to then subtract or add to get rid of it. My 120 is positive. I am not focusing on this plus sign right here. That is not what I want to look at. I want to look in front of the 120, and if there is nothing, it means it is positive. If there was a negative sign there, it's negative, and you need to get rid of it by adding. But since this is positive, I need to get rid of it by subtracting 120 from both sides. 120 minus 120 is gone. That is 0. I'm going to bring down that 6m. And 150 minus 120 is 30. I'm going to squeeze that in there as I'm running out of room. So I added or subtracted. And then the last m was multiply or divide, focusing on the side where your variable is still. You're going to multiply or divide to get rid of your coefficient in front of your variable. So my side with my variable, my coefficient is 6. So I want to divide both sides by 6. Your 6 divided by 6 is 1, leaving you just with m. I'm going to bring that back up here. Equals, and 30 divided by 6 is 5. So that is the answer to the equation. The solution, I need to answer the question. How many months will it take? So it will take 5 months. Also, this should match what you defined your variable as. So if you answer your question with how it's supposed to be answered, these two words, or maybe a couple words, depending on what you're asking, they should be the same. So it will take 5 months before Bill and Phil weigh the same. Now, some of you might have been able to work your way through that answer without setting up an equation and defining your variable. You could have figured out you get 5 months just working it through in your head. But on your quiz, you have to set up an equation, you have to define your variables, and then you have to have a solution. Okay? If you do not have an equation and if you do not have a defined variable, then you will not get full credit for that question. And then I highly, highly, highly recommend you just show me some work so that way I can see what you did wrong if you happened to make a mistake. At this point, you're going to finish all your word problems before you try your quiz.